Hey everyone, today we're going to talk about whether or not you need a gimbal. Now if you're watching this video, the answer is probably you don't. But to find out, I bought an RS3 Mini. My God, look how much dust is on it. So the RS2 Mini is DJI's smallest gimbal. You can really see how small it is when you take off the tripod legs at the bottom here. And you can see that this thing can be easily held in one hand. Despite its small size, it's actually quite incredible in how much weight that this thing can hold. So the RS3 Mini can carry the full weight of a Sony a7 IV full frame camera, plus a 24-70 G Master 2. So with this lens attached to the full frame a7 IV camera, this gimbal is able to take the weight and basically maintain full range of motion. So the fact that this mini gimbal can allow you to have full range of motion with a full frame camera with a pretty heavy lens is a pretty incredible feat in itself. Normally some smaller gimbals won't allow you to, go underslung mode like this, but this has very good clearance, even with the large 24-70 lens like we have here on the a7 IV. Now, of course, this being a DJI gimbal, you have all of the nice DJI features. You can triple tap the trigger to go into selfie mode, so the whole rig spins around and faces you. Double tap to go back to forward facing, or actually to reorientate as well. So, if the gimbal has gone off a little bit and you want to recenter it, you can just double tap and the gimbal faces back forward. You of course have access to the DJI Ronin app, which allows you to do cool things like force mobile. So let's turn this on. And now the gimbal is gonna point the way that I turn my phone, which is actually more useful than you think. If you put the gimbal in a remote spot and you're trying to frame yourself, you can use this to do it remotely from your phone. You can also control the camera directly from the gimbal as well. So if you plug in the included USB-C cable from the camera to the arm of the gimbal, so there's a plug at the front here. Once you've done that, you have basically got control of the camera from the phone. So you can start the recording from the phone, or you can start the recording straight from the gimbal handle as well. There's a little record button here. And if you have a zoom lens, you can actually control the zoom as well. So with the cable plugged in, one of the features it enables is something called track. So if we turn on track, you'll see that there's different waypoints you can set. So what does this mean? Well, let's start by using the joystick down here, and we're going to move the camera using the gimbal to the left. And then we're going to set a waypoint, waypoint 1. And then we're going to move the gimbal to the right. And then we set a second waypoint. Now you can roll the gimbal as well, or the camera like this as well, but we're not going to do that. So if you press preview, the gimbal will go to position 1 and then to position 2, just to show you what those two positions are. So if we go to position 1, you can set how long you're going to stay at this position for. So this is 2 seconds. And if we go to position 2, there's actually a movement duration which shows up. So this is how quick the gimbal will move from waypoint 1 to waypoint 2. So if we set this to, let's say, 12 seconds or 10 seconds or 11 seconds. Now, if we go to position 1 and we hit record, the camera will actually start recording. And then after the 2-second stay time, the camera will slowly move to the second waypoint over the 11 seconds that we defined. So this is great if you're doing a time lapse. So if you're doing like a nice sunset time lapse, you can set the camera to have 2 different waypoint positions so that you have some movement in your time lapse instead of just a static shot. So battery life on this thing is actually pretty excellent. So what I found is most of the time my microphone runs out of battery before the gimbal does. Also, sometimes my camera runs out of batteries before the gimbal does, depending on how I use my camera. So yeah, battery life on this thing is phenomenal and it's excellent. So despite this being DJI's mini gimbal, it has all the creature comforts of its larger gimbals as well. So it has lockable axes or axes. So you are able to lock each axis like this. making it very easy for you to balance your gimbal. So you can unlock just this one so that you can balance your camera in one direction first, and then you can lock it down, and then you can slowly unlock the second one and then balance on this axis here as well before, you know, unlocking the third one and then also balancing there. So this makes balancing your gimbal super easy, and it also makes storing the gimbal super easy as well. So once you're done shooting, all you do is you unlock this, and then you can slide your camera straight off this plate. And to store the gimbal, you can just basically fold it up, and you can unlock the axes and then put it in its most compact position and basically lock them back down again. Now this kind of brings me to the bad parts of this gimbal. So with the camera removed, this is about as compact as I can get this gimbal. And as you can see, it's not quite flat. It's got bits sticking out everywhere. Now, compared to how it was originally before I balanced the gimbal, it's not the same shape, right? So the problem is, once you've balanced the gimbal, this arm here gets moved further out. And when that happens, it no longer stacks with this arm here. So you cannot rotate this to fit above this anymore because it is now lower than this arm. So in order to get it into that more compact position, you basically have to retract this arm up for it to sit there, which is fine, except you've now ruined the balance of your gimbal. You've just spent 5 minutes before your shoot to balance the gimbal, and now after you shoot, maybe you're going to a different location. Now you have to rebalance it just because you had to put this into a compact position for travel. Not great. So it's at this point that you start to realize that using a gimbal adds a lot of friction to your camera setup and your workflow. So using a naked camera, super easy, grab it out of your bag, turn it on, and you're good to go. Zero friction. Using a gimbal, you have to grab your camera, grab your gimbal, probably rebalance it because it's in this compact form, and then you have to turn it on and then make sure that it is calibrated, and then you can start shooting. These additional friction points make it less likely for you to shoot or less likely that you'll use your gimbal, which is kind of the position where I ended up at. So for my kind of videos, you have a static shot like this on a tripod, zero need for a gimbal. I've started vlogging recently and I've just been holding the camera out like this. And yeah, it's a bit shaky, not super great. I tried to add a gimbal and the shots were amazing, super steady, but then my arms got tired. So to address the original question of whether or not you need a gimbal, for me, I probably don't need a gimbal. Now, the gimbal does give you some really nice shots that you can't get handheld. For example, orbital shots where you are running around your subject with the camera. There's no way you can get that stabilized without a gimbal. Underslung shots where you're holding the gimbal like this at the camera at the bottom, those shots, there's no way you can get that handheld. Also, there's 360 rotating shots. Again, you need the gimbal to do that. Now, for my types of shooting, where it's like a fixed frame like this on a tripod, or if it's vlogging where you hold the camera out in front of you, I think you don't need a gimbal for that. Any nicely stabilized camera with active stabilization or OIS should be good enough to handle your walking shots. Now, also, if you are questioning whether you need a gimbal, you probably don't. Anyway, hope this is useful, and thanks for watching. Look, it's a whale. Look, it's an octopus. It's the sun. The seagull's got something. It's like a fish. What did he get? He's still alive.